Violence on October 25th, 2023. We've had several very successful webinars thus so far. We're excited about all the information that we have received, all of the extraordinary speakers that have come on, that has allowed us to really see that there's some really great soldiers out there in the field making a sustainable and substantive difference in those communities that we call at risk, and also in the community, the American society as a whole. As you know, that every day that you look at the news, all you hear is more gun violence, more shootings, more killing, more murdering in the different communities throughout the nation. And this has become very concerning to all, I believe, all parties across all racial barriers, all religious barriers, and all national barriers to see what is really going on. We have had speakers who are from the religious community, and not just them being pastors or religious leaders, but also those who are out there on the field making a difference within the communities that they serve. We've had police officers and police chiefs and in all sorts of different law enforcement persons come on and give us their stories, their avenues that they have been concertedly working to stop the violence in America and stop the violence in a community, whether it's prevention or post-violent events. More importantly, we were moved by all of the prevention programs that are out there across the nation. We have been also graced to have people, advocates, who just decided they were going to get out there and make it work. What they were making work was that they were part of those communities, and they decided that they were going to look at the necessary avenues to begin to stop the violence in their particular communities, which devolved into certain and wonderful programs that are working, that have track records right now. We've had political leaders, mayors from Kansas City on both sides of the river of the Kansas City to come on and share some of their works, and just amazed at the depth of concern and the depth of involvement that all those who have come on have shared with us and have been paving the way for sustainable and substantive change within their communities. This is encouraging. One of the things that I have gleaned and observed is that by starting this wonderful program and this webinar, Stopping the Violence in America, which originally we were thinking of the gun violence that is wreaking havoc within a community, and not only a community of America, but all over the world, that have morphed into looking at what are the root causes. So many of these organizations and these people, they have decided, well, we're going to look at the root cause. One of the other persons or people that have come on were concerned about character education. How do we enforce or integrate character education within a construct of these communities or these different programs that they are using in order to reduce crime within their prospective communities? But as I had said before, the problem I've witnessed was that problem we have witnessed was that we're islands on our own. Can you see me, my computer? Okay. We're islands on our own. And meaning that there's a lot of people out there doing things in their respective communities. But I think that what we need to do is interconnect all of these communities in different areas nationally, so that we can glean, we can learn, we can work together, not only heal my perspective, my community, but also be a catalyst for healing the nation as a whole. Because many of these communities that we are dealing with that are more high risk and violent behavior are their problems are stemming from similar situations and similar environments. So we're really happy that all of you have come again, those who are there to support us and those people who are all alive on YouTube that are listening to us. Today, our speaker is on his way in, and our speaker is a chaplain as well. And I will introduce him to you. What I would like to do as we are moving forward is to continue to have some overview of what we feel that will be the next step in all of this, all of these programs that we have had over the last 60 some weeks. I think Nadia probably has the weeks more clearly than I do, but I know they're probably past 60 weeks consistently. But what I'm thinking of doing, as I have spoken with Dr. Jenkins, is let's have a national conference here. I'd like to have it in Washington, D.C., where we will bring all of these speakers and best practices in under the same roof and discuss, collaborate, network, and see how we can absolutely, on a national level, work together to make the difference in our communities. As we can see that America is rift with violence, but we can see that there's violence breaking out in all around the country. When we look at Israel and the Hamas over in the Middle East, it's saddened, but that's a reality that there's violence there. And we can look at Russia, we can look at the Ukraine situation and other places around the world that are wreaking havoc with violence. But we have to find a way to begin to look at all of the root causes that has allowed and has engendered people to pick up guns and to retaliate because they feel something that reverts into violent behavior and killing and murdering others. So we're looking forward to our speaker. I believe our speaker has arrived, and I would like to introduce him. Let me give you a small introduction of our speaker, and we're glad to have him on. Is Imam Ahmed Al-Amin. Was born and raised in Saudi Arabia and spent significant time in West Africa, resulting in speaking 6 languages and ordination as an imam. Since 2017, he has been the imam and a director of religious affairs of the Indianapolis Muslim Community Association, the first Muslim community and nonprofit organization in Indianapolis. In addition to his role as a Muslim community, Imam Al-Amin currently is pursuing a professional doctorate in philanthropic leadership at Indiana University, Lilly Family School of Philanthropy. Tongue-tied, God bless you, so you know what I'm saying. Serving as the chair of the board of directors of the Center of the Interfaith Cooperative, and holds a role in the board of Greater Indianapolis Multi-Faith Alliance as well. Further, Imam Al-Amin serves as a chaplain within the Marion County Sheriff's Office and Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department, serving officers and civilians. Imam Al-Amin, God bless you. Welcome. We're glad to have you, and I'd like to hear your story. And then after we hear your story and how you've been working within the law enforcement area and probably dealing with so many avenues of violence or whatever. But and then after that, we will have question and answers. Welcome to our webinar.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Excellent. Excellent. How much time do I have, Mr. Over?
Oh, take your time. We have 20 minutes, so take your time. And you can, and then after that, we will have some questions.
I said this: never give a child a phone and never give Imam a microphone, because they will never give it back to you. I need to be mindful about the time I'm given. First of all, thank you, Mr. Oliver, and thanks to the organizers and Universal Peace Foundation and all those who are part of the mission of building peace. As I always say, building peace, it is a responsibility. It is a collective responsibility. It is an individual responsibility. Everybody has to play part in it. It's not one government's responsibility. It is not one society, one community or society's responsibility or entity. Having said that, I would like to first apologize about the delay, because I was just as I've been traveling all last week to Los Angeles for an interfaith or multi-faith retreat where we brought imams, rabbis, and pastors in the same room to build relationship, get to know one another as introduction to build collaboration. And we did this in a very intense time where the conflict in Palestine and Israel is going on. Unfortunately, many civilians are victim of this war that we ask God Almighty to bring an end to it and bring peace to the Holy Land. We were very nervous when we started the retreat, because we've done this multiple times, but this time is very different because the emotions were very high. And we don't know how it turns out, but it turns out great, because I really think that when we as human beings, regardless of our differences, when we get together, talk to one another instead of proxy conversation or talking over social media or getting our information from media, and when we meet in person, share meal, and have honest conversation, not sugarcoating, talking through our differences in spite of them, not without them. It's a great way to solve conflicts and bring peace. So I was in LA area all last week, and today, just before I come to you, I was scheduled to give a lecture in the university here, Indiana University in Indianapolis, to talk specifically about Islam, jihad, violence, and terrorism. And this too was actually a difficult conversation because of what is going on in the Middle East. And so it took longer than I expected. That's why I came late. And I really apologize to all those who have been waiting. And I hope we will make a good conversation out of this. The issue of violence is very dear and near to me, or stopping violence is dear and near to my heart. First, because I grew up, I was born and raised partially in Saudi Arabia, then I spent a big portion of my time in West Africa, which is unfortunately is impacted by terrorism of Boko Haram, which it was not before when I was growing up, because it has been one of the most peaceful places on the earth. And coming to the US after I became Imam, I did not choose to be in a police chaplain. I was actually invited to be a police chaplain. I did not know what chaplaincy was, let alone police chaplaincy. However, after the onboarding process and going through the police academy, I was sworn in 2019 to be the first Muslim police chaplain, not to represent only Muslims, but to represent the values of humanity that we all share. And that was before I was sworn in as a police chaplain. I was appointed to be a sheriff chaplain, where I serve the inmates and the sheriff unit. And when I become police chaplain, now that's an added duty to where I respond to scenes and get to see violence firsthand. And what breaks my heart the most, every crime is bad, but what breaks my heart the most is crimes that are involved in taking somebody's life, because any other crime is repairable. But when you take somebody's life, you cannot bring them back. And this is why it is worth investing every effort in stopping violence wherever it is, whatever the reason is. And as a police chaplain, I respond to things after they happen, and support the families and our officers who are on the scene. However, I've always asked myself, why am I only responding where I was before the things happen? What can I do to stop this? My least favorite thing is responding to a homicide, or a suicide, or a drug overdose. I felt as a human being first, and as a Muslim, that I needed to do anything that I could possibly do to stop this from happening. Then I start asking, officers on the scene, what do you think about this and how we can solve the problem? And I ask to see the officials. And then it seems like everybody's trying their best and everybody knows the problem, but we still do not know what the solution is. A lot of good is happening. However, it is not enough. So to find an answer, I decided to start my doctorate to explore ways to reduce violence and using philanthropic means. There are many ways to address violence. There is police way, a law enforcement way. There is treating this as a mental or public health matter. But one thing I found is there is one thing that is lacking: collaboration. It looks like everybody's trying to do a great job by themselves, but the problem is so big to where we need collaboration between us to stop it. And COVID, as bad as it is, it taught us that what impacts one of us could impact the entire world. I was in San Francisco airport in 2019 or 2020, actually, January 2020, when I saw, a group of people wearing face masks. And I told myself, why are these people wearing face masks in America when the virus was in China? I did not know that a month or 2 months after that, I will be catching the virus, that I thought it was too far and I almost died from it. So the first lesson I learned, that I should never say this is too far for me. I should be fighting for anything that is happening that is harming humanity wherever and however far it is. The second thing, on a positive note, COVID taught us that as human beings, not as Muslims or as Christians or as Jews or as Hindu or Sikhs, when we stand together, regardless of our differences, there is nothing we cannot defeat. And just like we were able to defeat this virus that claimed the lives of millions, and we pray for the families of the victims, we were able to conquer this virus, or at least minimize the effort. And I really think the world needs to learn from this effort to collaborate to stop violence, because violence is harmful to everyone. And regardless of what sector you are from or what race, whether you are a government sector, business sector, or nonprofit sector, whether you are a community member or you are, a faith leader or not, if you don't have a faith, violence still impacts you. And this is why the solution I saw was, I'm still doing my research, but the importance of collaboration in facing this. In my work with the police, I have responded to dozens of homicide scenes. And unfortunately, I wanted to share some statistics here from Indianapolis that, I don't know, wherever you are, I think this could be, important and alarming, because like I said, what impacts one of us could impact all of us. Gun violence in between 2020 and 2022, it claimed the life of 700 individuals in Indianapolis. 85% of these victims and the suspects are male. 77% of the victims and suspects were Black men, even though Black are only 29%. So, and these are statistics, but I can ensure you that it is a reality. Most of the homicide I have been on is actually Black. Does it mean Black people are bad people? No, it's very important for us to draw the line. Black people were enslaved, and Black people are impoverished. Black people still, unfortunately, are victim of social injustice and wealth inequity. And CDC actually have found that there is a strong relation between poverty and the amount of violence. And for those who are not living in impoverished societies, you might think that this is not actually, fighting poverty is not our responsibility. In fact, it is our responsibility, because if we do not fight poverty, we will not be safe. And one of the best ways, this is not to justify violence, but instead of addressing, gun violence, which is important to laws and rules and regulations and policies, it is important to address the root cause, which is bringing justice and making sure that there is fair wealth redistribution in the societies where they are impoverished. And if we don't do this, we will be paying the price, all of us. Um, Unfortunately, 2023 started to be the most violent year in the history of Indianapolis. And I'm talking about Indianapolis, and probably there are cities that are worse than Indianapolis, in spite of the efforts that are happening by the police, by the mayor of the city. But we still are struggling. And the cost of homicide, per one homicide, it is $1.2 million. One homicide cost $1.2 million from taxpayers' money. And imagine we use this 1.2 million and in building, the societies, or rebuilding the societies that are struggling. So now what we are doing, actually, we are distributing and wasting these funds instead of using them for what is advantage. So less homicide is better for the city. It's better for the economy. It is better for the society in general from all aspects. There are models where that work, and this is why it's very important for us to explore these models and how can we actually how can we solve the issue. Unfortunately, the current efforts are, like I said, there are a lot of efforts, but the results are not really good enough compared to the amount that we're spending. And between 2019 and 2020, there was about 2 million, over actually $2 million that were given in efforts of gun reduction, violence reduction, which is, unfortunately, it is still not solving the problem. So talk about the root cause. Family structure is important, and this is why, as faith leaders, it's very important. Faith, poverty itself is not good reason for people to be violent. When there is poverty, but there is faith, regardless of what the faith is, it will help people to stay strong during difficult times. But when people lack faith, then we are struggling. And most of the victims and the suspects are actually youth now, and they're getting younger and younger and younger. Just 2 weeks ago, we had one 18 years old and 16 years old. They went on gun exchange with another 16 years old. That went wrong and end up by killing the 16 years, or one of the 16 years old, and wounding the other 16 years old. At 16 years old, most of us, when we were growing up, we don't even have access to BB guns, let alone, now 16 years old is actually is not even using guns. They're dealing with guns. And most of these guns, if not all, they are illegal guns. So that's why faith is very important, and family structure. It doesn't matter how much the government does to reduce violence. If we don't have healthy family, it is not going right. It's not going to go right. The formula of building healthy society, every nation is made of societies. Societies are made of communities. Communities are made of families, and families are made of individuals. Families are safety nets where we can make sure that these 16 years old, they don't go and sell guns. Instead, they go to school. And the 18 years old was supposed to be graduating this year, and instead of walking his graduation, now he has to spend much of the rest of his time in jail, unfortunately. So it's very important for families to understand, hey, where my children are going, who they are hanging out with. The sad part is that most of these violence tendencies are actually on social media. Kids post guns on social media, being proud of it, dealing with it, and being proud of dealing with it. And family still are oblivious, oh, my child is really the most innocent child. I'm not here to judge, but family, you have parents, you have obligation to know what your child is doing, because literally you would be surprised. One of the parents, he said, my son actually never had a gun, and he doesn't have access to gun. I told him, and he says, I know my son. I said, look, I'm going to tell you, Dad, your son is not only using gun, your son is dealing with guns. And now you didn't even know about this. I know kids are very slick, not to, insult them or judge them, but we have to come to their level as parents, because what is happening now, there's disconnection between parents and children. Parents do not know what their children are doing. These are your children, and you have responsibility. Just like you feed them, you need to make sure they're doing their homework. You need to make sure who they hang out with, so that you can guide them. during the developing the brand, when kids start using marijuana, getting involved with this, wrong groups and crews, you've lost them forever. Either you lose them to jail or prison, or you lose them to grave or cemetery. And this is what is happening. Most of our youth who are involved in these violent behaviors, they either end up by dying. And recently we had a 17 years old, within our community who got killed. And most of the time they have something to do with this violence and these criminal behaviors. The second thing, now as a family and as a faith leaders, once we know what the problem is, it's very important for us to treat our youth with utmost respect and kindness, and we need to hear them. Because one of the things that we are not doing well as leaders, whether faith leaders or civic leaders, or government officials, we are not listening to these youth. These youth who are involved in their risky behaviors, we should actually sit around the same table with them and listen to their struggles, listen to their challenges. They need guidance many times, and we should be less judgmental. Yes, they made poor choices, but if we are judgmental from the first place, then we will actually shut them down. And trust me, and I said this, if you are a bad person, I would rather know that you are a bad person than showing me that you are a good person and actually you are doing bad things. Because if you show me that you are making poor choices, then I will actually help you and I will guide you. And I'm not saying this in a braggadocious way, but one of the things to just hopefully it will help everyone who's on this call. Building relationship with the youth is the best way to address the issue of violence. Building trust. I had a situation where young people come to me and they said, "Oh, we use drugs and we need help." I had a situation where young people come to me and they said, "Oh, we killed someone and we need help." So building that trust is honestly the best way to make sure that we understand their struggles and help them out. Many times our solution is reaction. It's very important for us to be proactive. What we are doing now is stopping the bleeding because we did not prevent the wound from happening. And I think as a faith leaders, it's important for us now to start thinking of the next generation. Now, there is a whole generation, sorry to be pessimistic, but there is a whole generation that we lost most of its youth to drugs, to gun violence. Now we have younger ones who are coming, especially like I'll give you an example of the elementary school students. These are pure, they're still clean, they have not been contaminated. These are our future. If we don't do well with this generation, we will end up by losing the same generation that we are losing right now. And this goes on a multiple level. First, whether you are a faith leader, church leader, synagogue leader, or mosque leader, make sure you use the pulpit, because we use most of the time, even the sermons that we give are not relevant to many of the youth and the younger generation. It's important to understand their struggle and use the pulpit to address it. And then the second thing, sometimes we need to come down the pulpit to their level where we need to have conversation with them. The second thing, collaboration between family, school, faith leaders, and faith communities and houses of worship and the government. It's kids need to hear the same message from everyone or those who are involved. Because if they start not hearing the same message, repetition does help. And if they hear the same message in school, they come home, they hear the same message, then it will actually make sense to them. The third thing, fighting poverty and disparity in our society. Somebody who's hungry does not actually listen to anything, does not understand anything. I had a situation where a young man who I used to counsel in jail, and we had amazing counseling sessions where he promised he will never be back to jail. And within less than a year, actually, he came back to jail. And I was like, why? He said, look, I finished my time. I go out because of my background. Nobody's going to hire me. Nobody, which is not probably true. Most companies don't hire, but there are some opportunities. The second thing, he says, nobody rents me a place because my background is messed up. Now I have to do what I used to do, which is selling drugs. And he got caught again because he said, I have a baby to feed and it's my responsibility as a dad. To me, I don't condone selling drugs or anything, But as a society, I think we fail these people, because if they're only selling drugs, there are people who, yes, drug dealers who are really, that's what they wanted to do. But there are people who they did not have any other opportunities, or this is the easiest opportunity. It's important for us as a society to let them know there are actual opportunities and create these opportunities for them, continue being with them. Returning citizens or formerly incarcerated people, they are people. They deserve our compassion. They deserve our mercy. We should not treat them as criminals. And the way to rehab, and I have a lot of pastor friends, and I listen to a lot of Christian sermons. One time I was listening to a pastor who was preaching, and he said something more or less about someone who recovered from alcoholism. And that person who recovered, he said, I recover. What helped me in my recovery is the encouragement of the people, not those people who put me down. In fact, it's very easy for us to label every inmate to being a bad person. No, we actually have to see the good in them and give them opportunity to redeem. God gave us multiple opportunities to redeem. So I don't think we should prevent people from that chance. Mr. Oliver, do I have more? How much time I have? If I would like, if we have to leave time for questions, I will be more than willing. If not, if I have more time, I would like to continue a little bit.
Yes, so you can.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Yes.
Yeah, so take a few more minutes and then we will have a question answer. And also you get more opportunity to share some things.
Okay. So yes, going back to what is our individual responsibilities. Sometimes the problem seems too big to where we don't even know where to start. I will say start with your neighbors. Start with your neighbors, because sometimes we have our neighbors, we never check in on them. And when you see a child, make it intentional to reach out to children. The best way to teach a child empathy is treating them with empathy. You cannot you see a child, treat them with with no respect, with no regard, and expect them to grow up to be respectful. So treat them with kindness, treat them with respect and dignity. And the second thing, reach out. We all have in our faith traditions what suggests or what says that human being life is sacred. In the Quran, for instance, we have a verse that is sent to the Jews, the children of Israel. God says in the Quran, because of the incident between the children of Adam, who killed one, it was the first homicide. God says, whoever saved one life, as if they saved the entire humanity, and whoever killed one life, as if they killed the entire humanity. So the matter is very serious. From faith perspective, I believe I have an obligation to make sure that I save one person. People are struggling, and many times struggles go unnoticed. If you notice from the statistics, most of those who involve in criminal behavior are boys. And I always say this: boys, you gave us hard time, thanks to girls. But boys need more attention, and they are struggling silently. The issue of mental health. Mental health is a very serious. Boys are not trained to be vulnerable, and we are in a society where we teach people or kids to, or men, to be tough. Don't talk about your struggles. And unfortunately, like when I train the officers, or or even talk to the youth, I tell them we are like pressure cookers. Pressure cooker has a valve and it has a lid. It has a lid and it has a valve. Without the lid, it is not going to be pressure cooker. It will just be a pot. So we need that lid actually. But at the same time, there is a valve that depressurizes. If we don't have that valve that depressurizes, what happened? It will blow up. And this is exactly what is happening. These kids go through a lot of trauma, a lot of difficulty, and they don't have a way to express it. I tell them, you don't have to put your business out there for everyone, but it's important for you to have an outlet. And I hear often, or when we start talking about our issues, we get judged, get looked at. I don't even have a friend who I trust. So let us be these friends, who they can trust and they can come and talk to us. If we don't do so, two things will happen. First, mental health will come, and they will get into episode of depression, and then most of the time they go to the wrong direction to depressurize, and that is drugs. And they start using drugs. And now actually, so before marijuana, now they mix the marijuana with synthetic. Recently they start using insecticide that we use to kill bugs. They spray the marijuana with, and to where when actually they smoke, they hallucinate. And now we move from marijuana to fentanyl. Fentanyl is, I really urge, I don't know how many people we have on the call. I really urge you to search up a little bit about the danger of fentanyl. A small, dose of fentanyl actually could easily kill. And it's not even regular fentanyl. It is mixed with, contaminated with chemicals that we don't even know what they are. So recently we started seeing a lot of drug overdose cases, and this is not a normal thing. And many times there are younger folks who, they have been going through a difficult time, and then they start using this drug, they start feeling better. So the issue of drugs, when you use it, or when the person uses it the first time, they feel incredible amount of happiness and joy and relief, to where now, okay, this is my solution. Now, the next dose they take, it is the same dose. They will not reach to that happiness. So what they do, they will actually add more of that dose and double it, maybe triple it, so that they can get to that. Then they will get to it. Then the next time they use it, that will not get them where they want it to be. So they have to keep increasing and increasing, to where you see the drug effect in them in every aspect of their life. So how drug overdose happens? Most of the time, people who die from drug overdose, they die from after recovery. So they go through episode of cleansing, and then they get better. And then I hear this, I promise you, I hear this at least in over 70% of the cases. Family would say, oh, he was clean, she was clean. So what happens is that they go clean. Let's say, for instance, they stopped at using 2 grams a day or 2 milligrams a day. And now after recovering, what they do, they go back to using the same 2 milligram that they stopped at. And the level of tolerance becomes so low because they stopped it for a while. And then that same 2 milligram that gave them joy before they go for cleansing, now that same 2 milligram is the reason why they die. And then they die. And this is why I know it's controversial, but it's important for us to, if we know someone who's addicted to drugs, it's important to educate them about this, because our goal should be saving the life. At this time, stigmatizing is not going to help. We have to be there for them and educate them. And then make sure we carry Narcan with us. Yes, people don't want to talk about these things. They're uncomfortable, but these are realities. If you have Narcan with you, you could have saved somebody's life. And then that will actually be the change for them. And many times we don't have even access to Narcans, even though they're available. So as faith leaders or group, community leaders, it's very important for us to start educating ourselves on, having access to this and the danger of drugs and how to prevent them. So I will stop here and see if we have any questions. I would like to hear, honestly, more than questions. I would like to hear your input. I would like to hear your suggestion, your advice, because I said collaboration is the key in this. It is not what I can do. It is what we can do all together.
Yeah, well, thank you, Iman. You did a great job. You hit some excellent points that actually we have discussed here. One of the points is that there's so many best practices out there, and we need to collaborate on what they are. And that I always say that the gun is an inanimate object, but we have to look at the root cause, what causes a person to pick up that particular object and create harm to his fellow man, his fellow brother, his fellow sister. So I really appreciate that statement that you made. I am going to open it up, but in one of the other statements that you made that I really appreciate, there are what you call historical traumas.
Or can call it generational trauma.
Generational traumas, but from the history, because history is from something that has done in history to your ancestors that has been passed on. And then there are current environmental traumas that compound that. And so we have to sift through the quagmire of situations in order to begin to heal. So yes, we have to listen to our young people. We have to listen and understand and appreciate a lot of their traumas so that they can feel that they're not alone in this situation. Many of them feel they're alone, so they take matters in their own hands. So I want to thank you so much for your excellent presentation. I'm so glad we finally got you. Bill was searching out for you. And so now I realize why Bill was so adamant in getting you on. So God bless you and thank you so much for your comments.
God bless you. I wanted to apologize to Bill for being difficult. I was actually very busy last week in LA because of the retreat we had, but I should not have made Bill's job harder.
It's all worth it. Yes.
Thank you.
Bruce, I see your hand up, and if you'd like to make a comment, Bruce Sucher, yes, your hand.
Imam, thank you so much. I'm in Chicago, but I went to Indiana University in Bloomington.
Okay.
And I've been good friends with Bill and Jack Harford for many years. Imam, I'm so moved by your spirit. So often the people speaking are so adamant. They're such ideologues. You know, it's either you're all right or you're all wrong. In the Middle East, either the Israelis are fine or they're Satan. What I would actually, I've been studying Islam lately, and maybe sometime you and I can share more about that. But in Chicago, you might have heard that we have somewhat of a gang problem.
Yes.
Although when I had a small accident last time I was in Indianapolis, and I was talking to the Indianapolis police, and they said per capita crime is worse in Indianapolis than Chicago.
Yes.
And I was very surprised to hear that.
Yes.
So in Chicago, you know, you mentioned, and I love the way you talked about poverty more than color, you know, because, you know, I can feel that. I can feel that poverty suffocates people. And of course, almost all of the crime in Chicago, the gangland shootings are black on black.
Yes.
And I just appreciate what you're saying. You know, there's a famous minister, Catholic priest in Chicago named Father Flager. And he constantly is having marches against crime and against gun violence. And I know him very well. I love him. I respect him. However, I have never seen one iota of progress in anything that he's done. I don't see in any way. You probably remember a few years ago, this young lady who had marched in President Obama's inaugural parade was shortly afterward killed about 3 or 4 blocks from his house because she was unknowingly walking in gang territory. And I know at the beginning, before you came, Reverend Oliver was able to share quite a bit. Yes, there are programs. I can only speak for Chicago. There's a zillion programs in Chicago. And I would say that none of them have had any success in lowering the violence. But again, I want to thank you personally. I have to come down to Indianapolis and meet you. You have such a beautiful spirit, and you present everything in a way that I think anybody can receive it. So God bless you.
God bless you, Bruce, and thank you for your comments. And I really hope to see you in Indianapolis. No accidents the next time, okay? You can just come for lunch and then go back safely. But I wanted to reiterate the importance of, dealing with gangs, I'm sorry. Gang people join gangs for multiple reasons. One of the reasons is, lack of looking for identity or sense of belonging. And I had two situations where one of the drug leaders, drug cartels actually here in Indianapolis, in the community, I heard, hey, he's a bad person. He's corrupting our kids. I said, you know what? I would like to meet with him. And I went and met with him, and they told me he was dangerous. And I sat with him. Now he's actually not dealing drugs. He has a business, a clean business. The second thing, we had a teenager who got killed just 2 months ago, and all of his friends are involved in selling drugs. And actually, drug is the reason why he got killed. And I sat with three of his friends, and all three of them actually decided to live that life now. So it's important for us. That's why I say, as faith leaders, we have to come down from our pulpits to meeting people where they are and having conversation with them, and give people some sort of validation. It's important to validate people's feelings even when we disagree with them, because when people feel validated, now they actually will be willing to listen and make some changes. And many of these kids, honestly, beautiful souls who happen to be in the wrong place with wrong crew. But thank you, Bruce, for your insight. And I really hope this will be an amazing opportunity for us to start thinking or rethinking on how to move forward. Reverend Oliver, sorry, I didn't address you appropriately. I'll call Mr. Oliver, but Reverend Oliver.
No problem. No problem, my brother. Thank you, Bruce, for your statement. I think everything is compounded together, and we have to sort out each, and so we can help the healing process. I do think that one thing that I kind of don't agree with Bruce on is that many times the reason why they don't work is that we have not collaborated. I'm quite sure there's something working in Chicago, but they're islands on their own, So how do we bring them all together and strengthen? The more that we come together, the more powerful the strength is, than in the resolve that we could have to make the decision on a national level. Daryl Franklin, how are you?
Reverend, before we go,
Franklin.
Daryl, I would like to, when I was starting my doctorate, and the reason why I got admitted to this program is because, my intention is to address the issue of violence using philanthropic means. And the question I asked myself, am I going to be able to solve a problem that multiple people, multiple organizations, government have failed to actually solve? And honestly, after 6 months through the program, this is exactly the answer I got to: collaboration. That is absolutely the key. And everyone is orbiting in their own universe, and even though we are all in the same cosmos, so it's very important for us to be galaxies, but we need to understand that our fate is one.
Amen. I agree. Reverend Franklin, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Reverend Oliver. Thank you, Iman. I am very inspired with just about almost every God-inspired word that came out of your mouth. But specifically speaking, I really appreciate you really touching on the point about how the pulpit, the message that the minister gives every Sunday morning, has to be directly in alignment with the relevance of the community he serves.
Amen. Amen.
Because that it resonates with me, and this is what I try to ask God to help me with every time I give a message to our community. I do my absolute best to try to incorporate what is the reality of the situation. How is God going to speak to me to address the concerns that people are dealing with on an everyday basis? And all that is to say that, in my humble opinion, you are spot on, because the answer is going to come from the spiritual community, because it's the spiritual community that the man of God has that anointing to be able to go beyond the dialogue that's not going to lead towards a solution.
Yes.
Because you got people who have perspectives on the right, and you got people who have good perspectives on the left. And so the role of the religious leader is what I see that you have been able to incorporate, with all glory to God, you have been able to incorporate. And that is that collaboration is going to take a spiritual leader to be able to create that mental artistic environment for the collaboration that's going to lead towards the trajectory, the true trajectory of healing. And it's so many things I can say, but I just want to commend you on that and to continue your wonderful work and what you're doing and making that artistic connection with those people who are involved in that situation, because as you do, more and more people will open up. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Reverend. I really appreciate it. Keep me in your prayers.
Okay, definitely.
All right. Next, after Wayne Hankins, and then after that, Dr. Madeline Clark.
Imam, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. It's really insightful when you're seeing the violence, knowing that poverty has a direct correlation with violence. And then when people get out of jail, the inability to find a job because of the bad record.
Mm-hmm.
That is understandable. On a different level, when we see what is going on with Hamas and Israel,
Mm-hmm.
I would like to hear your thoughts. How do you deal with a group of people that says another one has no right to exist? We are determined to eliminate you off the face of the earth, and you have countries that support that.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the threats. And then on another threat is atheistic communism that says revolution is necessary to bring about a false utopia in the future sometime. But these two things have been merging, and they have created violence on a national and a worldwide level. But I want to hear your thoughts. How do you deal with that? How do you resolve that and bring people together that are unwilling? One side is absolutely unwilling to sit down and discuss the issue.
Thank you, Reverend Hankins. I really, these are very two important questions that are very difficult. I really think to answer the first question, we need a whole session because, the last few days are the probably most difficult days in my life, professional life, addressing the issue of, or sending the message of peace across to everyone. To answer the first question, I will try to be as concise as I can. It's very important for at this time not to take sides, take position. And why I say take position, what is the difference? First of all, it's very important for us as people in the United States to understand and acknowledge and believe that Hamas is a designated terrorist group by the U.S. government. And it's very important for us to, whatever we do, it has to be within that frame. At the same time, it's very important for us as a general American society to distinguish between Palestinians and Hamas. And Palestinians are just regular people, the vast majority. Hamas is less than probably 2% of even people of Gaza. And therefore, Hamas doesn't represent what Palestine is. And at the same time, the ideology of Hamas that Israel has to be completely gone, that is not realistic. It is not realistic. It is not possible. It is not logical. And the solution to me, from in my humble opinion, two-state solution, where Israelis would have peaceful state and Palestinians have peaceful state where they can peacefully coexist. Both Israelis and Palestinians have right in that land, and we have to acknowledge that one. That's that right. The second thing, it is important for us as a faith leader to condemn any killing that especially involves civilians, children. It doesn't matter who does it. It should never be justified. It should never be condoned. It should be condemned. The third thing, never add fuel to the fire. Faith leaders, what we say matters a lot. And this is why it's important for us first to get our facts together and make sure, I appear a lot on media, And my message is very, and I tell media that you are not fair most of the time. You have to make sure you are getting your information from reliable sources, and make sure you get facts. Facts are stubborn. And we have to, especially when we talk from a pulpit, it's important for us to get the facts together, not repeat what we hear from the media from both sides. The second portion of this is we have to be beacon of hope during difficult times. We have to be moral compass when people start losing morality. Emotions are very high at this time, and we see insult from both sides. We have to condemn any violence and every violence, and it is very important for us to make sure that now our job is to give hope for people. My role is to call for peace. War has to end. War doesn't bring any good to anyone. Whether what is Hamas is doing, or what Israel is doing in Gaza as well. And we have, unfortunately, churches that were bombed, and we have mosques that were bombed, and we have Christian casualties in Gaza who are Arab. By the way, all Arab are not Christian Muslims. We have Arab Christians who are victim of what is going on. So I would say, if I'm answering your question, Reverend Hankins, it's important for us to have we as faith leaders to have a clear stance on this. We condemn any type of violence, and civilians' life must be protected. And what Hamas did was actually a crime on October 7th. And what Israel is doing in Gaza now, indiscriminately bombing people who are, many of who are innocent, cutting the power, and then cutting the water on them, cutting the fuel. All these are considered to be actually a crime war according to the international law. So education, and then let's stand be the moral compass. Hopefully, I'm answering your question, and I'm being clear enough to understand my position. As far as communism concerned, honestly, communism, I would say it is another version of terrorism that we have to stand against being spread. Unfortunately, it is used in a very beautiful package where, oh, you get your rights. Many we have example of Libya, for instance, that people of Libya were deprived from natural resources that Libya was very rich with, under the name of socialism or communism. And unfortunately, the society was victim. And as faith leaders, it's morally, we should condemn communism, and let's make sure that we stand by firmly for democratic right for people. And we definitely need that voice unequivocally to be clear to people.
All right. Thank you very much for those concise answers to Wayne. Thank you, Wayne. I would like to ask Dr. Madeline, and we're coming to a close very soon. Dr. Madeline, our last question. Welcome to the stage.
Thank you. God bless you, Reverend Oliver. Thank you so much, Bill Stoner, for your tenacity, and it was well worth the wait. Thank you so much, Iman. You were very clear in your points that you made. My question is, when we talk about the children, and I live here in Indianapolis, by the way, so I'm very aware of those stats. So when we talk about how we're losing our youth, and you said now we have to like really pour into the younger kids, the elementary kids, because it is starting at 8 years old, 9 years old now. And as you're talking, sometimes kids are products of their environment, what they've been exposed to, what they experience, then that's what the life that plays out for them, sometimes a lot earlier, than necessary. They don't even get an opportunity to really come into adulthood with responsibility. But when we talk about the younger children, the parents play an important role, and we talked about that, faith and parenting. But what do you think about parenting classes as part of the faith community?
Yes. Doctor, first of all, if I got my facts wrong, please correct me, because facts do matter. So I hope my statistics are in line. And I'm please feel free to add anything that is needed. And I would like to hear your insight about parenting. we have parents who are now actually as young as 16 years old, mother who's 16 years old, 17 years old, dad who's 17, a dad who never grew up and never had father figure in their life. And it's honestly, the solution is in your answer. Honestly, I think it's very important for us to have in our churches and our synagogues and mosques or temples parenting classes. And even before, and this is why being proactive is important. And I think in most of schools we have sex education, and part of sex education, I know they talk mainly about how to protect themselves from STDs and so forth, but it is important to add parenting to that, so that they learn how to be good parents. And parenting is not just giving a baby, that's probably the easiest part. Taking care of that baby is the most important thing. And as faith leaders, I know we all have, our traditions who promote marriages and, restricting premarital relationship to the minimum possible, or at least no babies before that. And, going back to these traditions is so important. Um, uh, uh, from my understanding, there is nothing like this in any of the mosques that at least I know I can talk about. And from the sins that I respond to, I promise you, doctor, every time. So when I respond to sins, one of the things I do, I don't go there just as a police chaplain. Many times I decide to go in a civilian uniform. Why? Because I wanted to have natural conversation with the families, and I always go beyond, talk about the scene to including, hey, how are you doing? How is there anything in your family that you're struggling with? I see doctors that people need these classes. So I hope that the leaders and the organization in our platform can actually consider having a curriculum for that. And I cannot stress this enough, Doctor.
Very much. Thank you, Dr. Madeline. That was a great question, and it's true. So as you stick around Bill Stoner and the likes of him, you will find that we're sticklers on character education and parenting education and abstinent education, no matter what. So there's research on that, in those. When you violate those, it does affect the behavior and character of the youth, and it leads to other stuff as well. So we're grateful for that. Thank you so much for your question. That was a very powerful question. Wayne, thank you so much for your three-pronged questions, because they were all pertinent. Dr. Franklin and also Bruce Sucher, everyone who has shared a few words, thank you very much as well. Dr. Iman, Alamin, God bless you. I'll give you like a 1 minute, if you give a 1 minute last word. We always like to give our guests the last word. And I want to thank you for coming on.
Yeah, I wanted to, my last word is to thanking you. I know probably it is uncomfortable to hear most of what I talk about, and I'm sorry to appear like a pessimistic. I was the most optimistic person until I joined the police department. And because of what I have been seeing, it just made me, every time I talk, it's more of negative. And I say this not because I want you to feel bad or, be hopeless. As faith leaders, we cannot afford being hopeless. We get our hope from God Almighty, and we will remain hopeful. The reason why I do this, we don't want to bury our heads under the sun and believe that there is no problem. No, we have serious problems. And I say, if it's difficult for us to hear these problems, about this problem, only hearing about them is difficult. What about people who are living them actually right now? So I hope that this will be a moment of education. I'm inspired by you, moved by your comments and questions. And I hope this will be a seed for a big tree of peace that we will all water together and enjoy the fruits eventually, us or our next generation. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for having me, both Reverend Oliver and Reverend Stoner. I hope I met your expectation, but I wanted to thank you for what you have been doing. It is a great work. Building peace is a noble work, and nothing should be less than appreciated. Nothing less than being thankful and grateful for you. And to build peace, you have to give away your own peace, right? So, which you have been doing. This is a big sacrifice.
True. Well said. Thank you very much, Iman, for your presentation. Was quite invigorating and quite. It was a beautiful presentation, and you were far from being pessimistic. I say this, and my conclusion is this: you can never solve the problem if you don't get to the root. And sometimes the root is a little ugly, something the root, but that's the only way you can find a solution, but you have to not stay in the root, but start looking for the solution. So thank you so much. And I heard solutions coming out of you as well. So thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. I want to thank everybody. I look forward to talking to you again.
Yes, look forward to.
God bless you. Yeah, you did a great job. Everyone, thank you so much for your participation, all the great questions, and the audience out there live. Thank you for coming on as well. God bless you. We'll see you next week.
God bless.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Oliver.
Thank you.
Thank you, Iman. Reverend Oliver, Bill Stoner, thank you.
God bless you. Thank you. All right. Yeah, very solid. So, okay. God bless everyone. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Bill.
Thank
You worked hard, Bill.
God bless you.
Yeah, good program. Thank you, Reverend Oliver.
Yes, sir. All right. God bless you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
That's great.
All right.
Take care.
Thank you all for coming on. Thank you, Mary. I don't know, Mary. I always see Mary's face is always inspiring. Robles.